Hey guys, welcome to my tutorial classes. So today's tutorial is going to go through the basics of Photoshop and just learning basically everything you need to know about Photoshop. So without further ado, let's show you what the basics are. So this is what Photoshop looks like when you open it. This is using 2019 version. So if that is newer than yours, then I do apologise. You can get this for $9.99 a month. It is a year subscription, but it's so good. There are a few new adjustments that they've improved and everything, so it is worth it. But if not, if you haven't got Photoshop and you would like a copy, then please do let me know, because I'm more than happy to share that one with you. So I'll be going over a few things with you. Is how to create a new project, basic tools, layers, groups, guides, filters, image adjustments, and that's basically it. So as I said, this is what Photoshop looks like. You might not have nothing showing here, it's just my recent projects. So you can either create new from here, or you can click create new from here. It doesn't matter which way. So this is how you're going to make a new document, to your new project, and you can choose sizes, you can save them. So if you want to adjust the size, like say custom, then you can just adjust it here. Always make sure it's pixels, nothing else. Especially if you're doing edits and stuff for roleplay, then that's the best way to do it. You can then save it. So if you click this arrow here, you can then save it, you can name it, as I've done there, 5x7 or 5x6, or basic edit or extra edit, however you want to do it. It's only going to set the width and the height. You don't need to worry about resolution or the color mode, background, or any of this. Just focus on width, pixels, height. And if you want it horizontal, I guess, or vertical. Horizontal, sorry. But yeah, just stick to the width, height, and pixels. Once you're happy with that size, you can click create. And it's going to show this. You're not going to see that, so I'll get rid of that. Now, that's what you see with your new page. And you've got all these buttons on the left-hand side, and these ones at the top, and loads down this side. Now, it can get complicated, but I'm going to take this step by step. So if you get confused with anything in this, feedback to me either on Discord, which is where you're probably going to know about this, and just say what you're stuck on, what you're confused about, and let me know so I can obviously direct you in the better place to and from it. So, basic tools. On the left, we've got this one's move. So as you can see, move tool. This one is like a select tool. They call it a marquee tool, but it's basically select. So you would select something, just no different as you'd press Ctrl and A. Does the same thing, select all. This is a lasso, so this is freehand lasso to cut things, objects out or shapes. And if you right click on it, just like you can with this one, you get different shapes. So with polygonal lasso, it's basically just lines. And then with magnetic, it's magnetic, so it'll just, if there's any item there, it will find it, or if there's any outline. I try to stick to either polygonal or lasso. Very often I don't use lasso, I use polygonal. Next one, this one is a 2020 exclusive. I think it's from 2019 onwards. But basically it's an object select tool, so it will find any image with, or any image you've got on your photo, it will outline it, as you can see in that picture. So they've used a cup, they've just highlighted it, and it takes the whole of that image. Next one is a crop tool, self-explanatory really. You can just crop your images down or make them bigger or smaller, and you can do that either way, it doesn't matter. Next one is called a frame tool. I don't use this. It basically just means that if you go like that, then put an image in, it will make a frame. That's all it's for. This one is your dropper tool, so just like any other program, if you have a colour on the palette, you can click that and it will give you the colour. So yeah, it's the same. And obviously there's other ones, but you only really need eyedropper tool. This one is called Spot Healing Brush. Basically, as you can see, you can copy over something and it will remove it by duplicating or cloning what would be beside it. It's quite helpful, but you don't really need to worry about it unless you're doing like quite complex edits, which if you've gone through my editing class, then you will learn this. But right now, just for the basics, you don't even need to know it. Next one is your brush tool. It's quite self-explanatory. You can draw with it if you need to. I will go through another stage, what's up the top in a moment. And then if you right click, you've got pencil and all sorts, but you only really need brush tool. This one is a clone stamp, so if you want to copy something or clone something, then you would hold your Alt button, and you get this little target. You click on the target, and then wherever you're painting, as you can see next to it, it would copy what is next to it, or what you've selected as a copy. Great again for copying items over, like as you can see on the preview. You can copy flowers, you can copy all sorts over. So that's quite helpful. History brush tool just makes it an early image. So if you put something on there and you're like, oh no, I don't like that bit, you can just use that, crop it out, and it'll be fine. You've done it. Eraser tool, again self-explanatory. You just have to, it's just for erasing. So if you've got a picture you don't like or something, you can erase it. Fill bucket tool, again, just to fill an area. If you right click on that one, you get gradient tool, which you just draw where you want the pattern to go or the gradient to go, and yeah, it'll give you a gradient. This one is smudge tool. If you want to smudge things, if you right click on it, it'll give you blur and sharpen. Blur is obviously to blur, sharpen is to make it sharper, and then smudge is obviously to, like, you can blend it with a smudge. This one, you've got burn tool, dodge tool, sponge tool. Dodge tool I don't use. It's not really required on basic edit. Actually, I don't think I've ever actually used it, to be fair. Burn tool I use sometimes with more complex images. Basically, if you need a shadow or something, that's a great way of using it. Sponge tool I don't use, so I won't worry about them. This one, pen tool, you'll probably see it being used more frequently when you do like the spirals on someone. You would click to your next item, and if you click and hold when you've done that second click, you can drag it to a curve, and you go down, and then you go across, and you go down. It is, or it can be quite difficult to get the right curves, but just play around with it, and honestly you will like learn how easy it is to do like the light beam kind of things, and then you just go like that. If you are going to do a light beam with this, that's only like a guideline, if that's the best way. You would have to right click on it and click stroke, and then it will ask for your brush, and you would always click simulate pressure, and you'll click OK, and it'll give you the brush line, and then you'd have to then go back into it and click delete path to get that line, if that makes sense. So let's just go back on that. You would right click on it anywhere, it doesn't matter where. Click over here, click over there, and you click stroke and simulate brush pressure. You don't have to, but that's what I prefer. There's other options, but you really only want brush to be fair. And then click OK. And then you'll have to right click on it again and click delete path in order to get the lines. So there's that one. T is for text. You can do horizontal or vertical. Don't worry about masking because you don't need to use them. I only really actually ever use horizontal. And if I need to rotate it, then I'll right click on it. No, I won't. I will press Control and I will just rotate it if I want it going down. But again, it's something you can play with. Next one is just obviously clicker tool, path tool. Not really much use for it. Obviously this one's for shapes. This one's a rotate tool if you don't like to rotate the whole image, not just your image. And then it's on zoom, and this one is just edit toolbar. Then you've got your colours. So this is foreground, and then you've got background. And you can set them as you see here. It comes up with a colour picker, which is exactly the same as your dropper tool. So that's the left hand side. You don't need to really worry about any other buttons. They don't really do nothing, to be fair. You can, if you feel more comfortable, drag this out, or you can drag it back in so it's docked. Right, now at the top, we've got File, New, Open. Browse and Bridge is only available for 2019 and onwards. Bridge is a separate program that I'll explain later on. It's just basically actually I'll explain it now, it's just easier. When you click on it, I will click on it for you so you can see. It only comes from 2019. It basically gives you, you'll PSDs but in view. If anyone knows, and I'm sure most people do, who probably knows about Photoshop, any pre-2019, you would not see PSDs in this way. They would pop up as this. You wouldn't see what they look like. So that's what Bridge does, is it obviously shows you what your PSDs look like. So it's quite handy, and that's why I prefer 2019 onwards, and that's why I pay for my Photoshop. So next on the list, obviously we've got open a smart object, don't really use it. Open recent gives you recent ones. You can close and go to Bridge, close all, save as, export. Export you only use if you're making GIFs, which I'll explain when we do our GIF tutorial. And then generate, don't use. Share, don't use. Search Adobe Stock. If you've got Adobe Stocks, then you can search that way. The only other one I would really use is import, and that's video frames to layer. So if you've got a video you want to crop down to a GIF, which again I'll go through on a tutorial, that's how you use it. And then obviously print. Next is edit. So you can undo things, you can redo things, you can fade, you can cut, copy, paste. Yeah, there's lots on here, but you really only need to worry about these ones. And maybe undo. I don't tend to use the other ones unless I use free transform or text transform, free transform or transform, which is Control and T. I will go through the shortcuts to make it easier, but they're the only ones I really use. Under image, you've got modes, so you don't really need to touch them. Ignore them. Adjustments, obviously, to adjust. And again, if you're following any other tutorials with this afterwards, I do have tutorials that will show you how to make PSDs and stuff and how to colour, so that's what you can use them for. Auto tone, exactly as it says. Auto contrast, as it says. Auto colour, exactly as it says. Image size, self-explanatory, you can adjust the image size. You press this button here, it locks it, so it'll make it proportional. And if you unlock it, it won't make it proportional. Then you've got image canvas size. This is basically what your canvas looks like. So if I made it bigger, my canvas would be bigger. Image rotation. If you want to flip the image, you can trim it and you can duplicate it. Nothing else needed. Layers. This is how you make new layers on top. So if you click layer, it will give you a new layer. So you can name this new layer if you wanted to. It will give you a layer on top that's transparent. So if I now went and drew something on there, if I unclick that layer with the eye, that layer is invisible. So that's what layers are for. You can also do it down here, which is this one here, this little plus box, and that creates a new layer. You can duplicate layer, so that's if you've got a layer there and you want to duplicate it again, you can duplicate it. All these other ones, again, I don't really use, so they're not really worth me going over. If you want me to go over them, then do just let me know, and I'll do another video for those who want me to go through them all. Type, I do not use because I will show you another way of using a type tool. Select all, again, what I said to you earlier, it's basically this button here, but in a tab. Filter, this is where you can do your filters, so you know when people do the radial blur, you can do under blur and do radial. You can do lens blur, motion blur. You can, if you have the topaz, this is where topaz clean comes under, or topaz effects. And you can do them all there, and obviously there's loads of different options here. You can play around with them as you see fit. 3D, I do not touch. View, again, I don't really touch this. All I ask is that you put extras. Ruler is up to you. So the ruler is this bit here. I use this mostly for if I'm doing, well, to be fair, I use it all the time actually, to be fair now. It's very rare that I don't use it, to be fair. The easiest way for me to describe it is if you're snapping things, so if you want it to be precisely in the middle, then that's where it becomes ideal. You don't have to do that, that's just my preference. Snap is just like I say, so you can snap it to the guides, you can wait on the mat, on the ruler, and that's about it. I don't really use nothing else unless you want to zoom in, but you've got that button there for most of these. Window, make sure you've got ticked the ones I have ticked. Range is completely up to you how you want to range your things. I have mine in tabs, just like you would on a browser. So that's why mine's like in a tab. Workspace, I would ask you to have motion selected. This will be for later on. If you do go on to do the GIFs and like things like that, that is where that comes in. Adjustments is what you see over here. This is the adjustment tab. I'll explain that at a later date as well. Character is obviously all your text. Histogram, to be fair, you don't really need that, to be fair. It just gets rid of the bit at the top if you saw that. It's just basically what you've done in your history. So you don't actually need histogram if you don't want it. Layers, highly recommend, because that's this bit over here. And then options and tools. If you want anything else on there, then you're more than welcome to. Timeline is also one I'd recommend, which is this bit up here. It does come automatically if you have it under motion. It will pop up, and then you can just double click on the timeline name and it will minimize it. So that's helpful. But I would recommend always have that up. If not, just have it like I've done it, minimized, and that'll be really helpful. So now that we've gone through the top, we're now going to go for the bar underneath. So naturally, home button if you want to go back to your home screen, and then I do not know how you get back. But yeah, you can do it that way. If you click a new item, you'll come back to the other one anyway. I don't tend to use the home button that often because I don't tend to go back to the home screen. So this is, I'm going to obviously go through these, but with your select tool, this is again where you can change your shapes. You don't obviously get anyone. This one is for a single selection. This one is to add a selection on. As you can see, I drew another box and it highlighted that selection. This one's to remove a section, and this one is intersect, I believe. Yes, so it will only highlight what you've highlighted. So you saw that I only highlighted this bit, it will only give me that bit. I tend to use pretty much the first and the second, or if not, I'll choose the second one and just leave it on, add multiples, because it's just easier sometimes. Feather, if you want a smoother outline, then you can have it, and by doing that you just can put like 1 pixel in there, and that'll be fine. Style, don't use. Select a mask, I don't use. In order to get rid of that, you need to click back on the first one, and it will disappear. Lasso tool, again, the buttons are exactly the same. You can feather it if you want to feather it. There's no option to or requirement to. This one is rectangle. Now, I forgot to go through these options, but you've got quick selection tool and magic wand. Magic wand I do not use. Quick selection tool is in a brush format, so if you wanted to select a certain part of the image, then you would use that one. But I actually find quick selection tools easier. Rectangle, again, it's just saying you can use a rectangle lasso. None of these you need to worry about other than object subtract, and that's it. Crop, you don't really get much option up there, I wouldn't even worry about it. Your pen, your brush is probably the most important. So where it says 1, if you click on the little down, it will give you your size of your brushes. You can adjust it by the slider, or you can type in, I want a 20 pixel brush, and they'll give you a 20 pixel. Hardness is how hard the outline is, so that one's got a hard outline or dense, and that one's slightly feathered. Again, you can play with them as you go. Some people find it in the middle just okay, and some people prefer it really faint. That's down to your decision. If you want to import new fonts, you have to click on the little cog and click import brushes. So I just say import fonts. Sorry, import brushes. This is where you import your new brushes. So if you download it on any online, this is where you get them from, or you install them from. And once you've done that, they'll be there, and they'll come up as little folders where your brushes will then be available. Mode, it gives you different options on how you want your brush tool to be. So if you want it overlaid, it will come out slightly different. As you can see, it's darkened. If you wanted it on darker, you could. Difference doesn't really work with this black. But there's loads of different options. Again, you can play around with them and see how you get on. Opacity, I'd always recommend 100 unless you're playing around with lighters, like styles. And yes, flow always 100% because if you do it, that's not going to come out as nothing. Think of it as a spray can. If the lower you are, the less it's going to come out. The harder you press, the more it's going to come out. Smoothing's always at 0 and my angle's always at 0. The next one you want is probably the gradient bucket. If you click this button up here, it'll give you your gradient editor. And with this you would obviously either select your own gradients by colour, or you can select the ones they give you. Some of these are installed, so just in case you're looking at them and going, oh, I don't have that one. Again, if you want to import a new one, you click import. You will then find where your gradient is and you'll click load, and it would come up, as you can see there, with a new lot of gradients. And you can play around with them on the slider. I don't know where that colour came from. Oh no, it's actually there. And then you can just play around with the colours, or how you want it to be. So that's gradient tool. Again, there's different options. So in this one you've got, so that was the line one. This one is the circle one, so it gives you a circle in the middle. This one is like I don't even know what you call that one, cut out, that's top to bottom. And then that one's a star shaped one. But you can play around with these and see how you get on. There's not any right or wrong way to use these. As with your brush tool, your smudge tool is the exact same. You can smudge size, feather or hardness as much as you like. I've never actually used a different mode because it's not worth it. If you're going to smudge something to blend it in, then you really want to stick to what you've got. You don't really want to then start messing around with the modes on that one. Text tool. So if you click on a text, you'll get a basic font or what you've last used. If you click here, it will give you all your fonts, including the emojis. If you want to install new fonts, you'll have to download them, and once they've been in your download folder, you would have to extract them using WinZip or WinRAR, and then you'd have to right click on them and click install. I don't have any fonts to install to show you how to do that, unfortunately. We'll double check. No, I don't have any fonts, unfortunately, that I can show you, but you would just literally right click on them and you would have an install button, and then you would just do it that way once it's come from one of these folders. So you would right click, you click extract, and then you'll get the font. So that's where you select all your fonts from. Regular, if it's an import font, I highly doubt it's going to be anything quite irregular. If you've got like Arial, that's where your other ones come in. So you've got narrow italic, you've got narrow bold italic, you've got bold italic. Yeah, that's where your options come from. This is your sizes, so how big you want your fonts, how small you want your fonts, how tiny you want your fonts. So you can play around with font size there, or you can press your control button and you get this box outline, and you can drag the corner in and it will obviously not make it 100% neat. So I'd avoid this unless you really want to, but it will change your font size. You can do it that way, or just obviously highlight it and change it. This one here is your effects. So if you click none, it's going to be with the grainy outline. If you click sharp, it's going to be sharper, crisp. I tend to use Windows. Whatever it shows on my screen is usually the safest bet, to be fair. This is your alignment, so left align, middle align, right align, and this one's colour. Now you probably noticed that I've got exactly the same here. That's what this arrow, this A tab's for. Exactly the same way, but easier than keep flicking up. So you just go over here to change things. So exactly the same way. This is your drop down for your fonts. These are your sizes. This is your colour. And this way you've got bold, bold italic, capitals, small font, small tiny font below, and then underline and strike through. And you've also got other things which you don't really need to worry about, but this one is probably the most important. If you have it underneath, so you have two lots of line, let's just put, and you want it to say name underneath, then in order to get this gap slightly smaller, you would use this one here. So you'll minimize, and as you can see, that's all now, that's too far, and you can adjust it. You can type in, I apologise, you can type in how much size you want. So if you wanted, say, 28, you could have 28. Let me mute my watch, I do apologise. And it would make it smaller. So that's one very helpful. This one is word spacing. So if you wanted to go squished in, or you wanted to go really far out, you can. Actually, letter spacing, not word spacing. You can make this ridiculously big if you wanted to, or you can make it ridiculously small. Oh, like so. So there are ways around it, and you can play around with it. I think I might have done my back to front. Yes, I have. And my computer's starting to mess up. Ah! Okay. So yeah, that's what this is for. I don't think there is any other ones you really need to know or be aware of on the left hand side and up the top. Once you flick through them, you'll see they're all very similar, to be fair. Eraser tool, again, is exactly the same. You can change the size. If you're going to erase something big, I would just suggest selecting it and clicking, not delete, clicking a new layer and then like just filling it. That'd probably be the easiest way, rather than deleting the whole thing and starting over. Now with layers, as you can see, it might just be easier for me to go through layers first of all. Once you've clicked on here, or once you've got your layer and you've filled it in, if you right click on the layers, you've got these options. So you've got layer from background, duplicate, delete, export, and all this. The ones you want to worry about the most are duplicate, delete, merge, and flatten. Flatten means if you have any other layers. So if I go like this and make loads of them, if I click flatten, it's going to give me all of them, unless you have them not visible. If you take the visibility off, so let me just draw something on this one so you can see. I can't even draw someone. Why is that? Oh, because that's white. So if I draw a heart, put that on right on the top. If I then remove that heart and click, and then click flatten, it removes that layer. That layer's not coming back unless you press Ctrl and Z for undo. If you click on it and then click flatten, it will give you that image. I tend to only click merge visible. So like I say, if you take the eye off and then click merge visible, it will leave you them layers that you can play around with. What else we got down here? We've got grouping. So if you've got multiple layers, you can press your shift button on your keyboard and click how many layers you want. If you click this button down here, or Control and G, it gives you groups. This is where you come to see in a few episodes time with GIFs and GIF frames. This is usually how they present and how it's easier for them to be in folders. If you've got thousands of layers, the last thing you want is to have thousands of layers. This way you can group, this one's my text group, this one's my photo group. You can change them around and make them easier for yourself. Also talking about layers, you've got the option here again with your effects. You've got all of them. I would suggest playing around with them rather than me explaining them all, because you'll find things that work for your edits or for your style, rather than me going through, well, this one makes it overlay, this one makes it soft light, this one makes it different, so it inverts it. So play around with them. You've also got opacity, so you can make it darker, lighter, you can hide it, you can bring it on. Sorry, I'm just going to grab a drink, bear with me. Talking for so long gives me a dry throat. So The next things I'm going to teach you is obviously these things down here. Don't really need to worry about them. To be fair, this one is your history, so any history you want to look at is all there. So if you want to go back all the way back to here, then you can. I don't really tend to use it. It is a basic one on there. It's what you get set as default. You've also got obviously your brush settings, and your brushes, and then your clone tools, paragraphs if you're writing that much, your glyphs, so if there's any special fonts or any special text, then you can put them that way. If you click this one, it's just properties. Again, I don't really touch that one. This one is you customize, and then you've got actions. I'm not going to go through actions right now because I'll go through that when we do how to make actions and how to apply them. So yeah, that is the basics. Once you're happy with your edit, you'll click File and you would click Save, and you'll click Save on your computer, and you would naturally make it a PNG because that's the best quality you can have as a digital format, and you would name it and you would save it. If you want to make it a PSD so it's editable, then you would just do it the exact same way and leave it as PSD, and you can still name it exactly the same because it's a different file type. You won't overwrite your old one. I've just forgot my train of thought, I do apologise. Yeah, I don't know what I was going to say there. But yeah, you can play around with your things. So again, if you want to go down here, I'll go back down to these ones back here. So this one's delete your layers. That one's your group. This one is giving you your image adjustments. Again, I will go through them when we do PSDs because that's where you would use them. This one is your masking tool. So with the masking, I will show you probably the easiest way to do a mask is with text. And my text is all messed up still. There we go. So if you do a text, I'm just going to use this basic. I'm just going to use a basic font. If you want to mask on an item, you would select where you want it to mask. So I want this bit. If I clicked mask right now, it would only select the inside. So if I click mask, I'm just going to get the inline, the middle bit. If I want the outside, but I want the middle bit left clear, then you select in reverse. And I'd also recommend changing the feather to 0 on this. I've took num knock off. And then once you've selected that, I've just got rid of it. You would then obviously select your inverse, make sure your feathers are 0, and then you would click your mask button. That will cut out the bit that you've requested to be cut out. And then if you want to do your writing inside, then you can. That's the simple thing of masking. With images, it is a little bit more difficult, but it's exactly the same way. Let me see if I've got a picture I can mask. So you would select the area you want masked. Again, you then just click your mask button and it will just cut out that area. If you want to edit that mask once you've cut it, you would have to use a white brush to give back that image, if that makes sense. So as you can see, it's coming back as I'm using a white brush. If I use a black brush, it's going to remove it. So I hope that makes sense. If you want to delete it, then you can click delete. If you want to disable, you can disable. You can also apply that layer mask. So if you wanted to keep it like that, you could click apply and it would leave it as that cut out. Which is super handy, especially if you're doing like cutouts like this, or you want a funny pattern or something. And that's how masking works. Image adjustments. I will actually go through that with you now because I think that's probably something you probably will need to use from time to time, especially if you're editing. So you would get your image. Where's my PNGs? You would select your image. If you wanted to adjust what it looks like, so you'd go to your image, you'll click adjustments. If you want to change the colour or the tone of it, you would go down. So your colour saturation, you want a bit paler, you don't want so much colour because she looks too orange or something, then you would bring it down. All of them work the exact same way, they're all sliders. So colour balance, if you wanted it a bit more blue, then you can make it a bit more blue. If you wanted to darken, give her a bit more brightness and a bit more contrast, or less brightness and more contrast, then you just play around with it. You'll learn what you'll think is suitable, and that'll be the great things later on when you start to learn how to edit and things like that. So that's that. If you want to close it, you can just click close. If you don't want to save it, you don't have to save it. Now with something else, I'm going to talk about effects. So again, we're going to use text for this easiest. If you double click on that, you'll get a layer style pop up. And these are all your options. There's quite a lot of options here. I would recommend stroke, and probably drop shadow, out shadow, and inner shadow are your main ones. You won't see them because the effect won't show right now. They're your main ones. So I will leave these, or I'll send these over to you if you need them, but I'll leave the screen on for a little bit so you can copy exactly how my settings are, because they won't be the default settings. So my stroke isn't usually that big, just a heads up. I usually make it around about 3, and if I am going to have it, it's going to be outside, and it would probably be not overlay, probably be normal. If I'm going to overlay it, it'll probably be a white, not a black. But it'll be about that kind of thingy, and obviously whatever colour you want it to be. Next one is in a shadow. You won't see this because I'm using black text, but basically it gives the text an inner shadow, which is very effective on white fonts. So if you're using white fonts, I will leave that there for you to copy for a moment. The angle bit where it says global light, I always untick that. I can't make it a default and always click on, so if you don't want it, then don't, and I always make the angle 0. Using global light means where the sun is currently. So it's currently midday for me, so therefore that's why it's pointing at 90 degrees. But yeah, I never have my opacity at 100% because I personally think it's too dark, so I always try and adjust it how I feel. And obviously preview will always show you what the preview looks like. Next one is outer glow. Again, you can't see it because it's white. If I make it purple, you will see. So that's how you get like your neon kind of effects, like neon writing. These are generically always the same. I never change these other than colour. Unless it's too bright, then I'll change the opacity. But it's always 100, it's always softer, it's always 4 and 7 and 50. And then lastly is drop shadow. You have to tick the boxes, otherwise they won't work. You can click on the plus if you want more than one, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's just going to get a bit too complicated. So once you're done with drop shadow, this should be black. I don't know what, it's under lighten. It will look like this. Again, a global light is always on. The distance is basically how far away you want it from your text. I'd always suggest going close or maximum about 4, maybe 5. Spread is always going to be 0, and size is how thick you want it basically, or how fluffy you want it. That's probably the easiest way to explain. I always have mine, depending on what distance I guess. If it's usually 0 or 1, it's probably around about 9, a 5 to a 9. So that's the basics. Again, you can change your opacity if you feel you need to, and you can change the colour. I hope that makes sense. And if you want to obviously use these, then you just click OK and it would come up here. And if you wanted to turn it off anytime, you just click the effects and it would stop it from showing. Now, shortcuts. So Control and T on your keyboard is transform. So how you can free transform. Control and Z is undo. Control and A is select all. Control and G is your group. Control and C is obviously copy. Control and V is obviously paste. that's pretty much all you'll need to know control wise, or shortcuts. And then obviously if you ever want to save it, then Control and S. If you want to print it, then Control and P. Not many people print this stuff, so yeah. Invert is Control and I. That is it that I use as far as I'm aware. If you need to know any of them, then they are listed next to it. So if you want to close, it's Control and W. If you wanted a new one, Control and N, and then you can get a new one up. New layer is Control, Shift and N, and that'll give you a new layer. If you're on Mac, you would use your Command button, not your Shift, your Control button, because you don't have Control, so it'll be Command and C, Command and V, Command and A, Command and I. It's exactly the same, it's just different format. With the pen, the pen tool, if you are doing a design, once you right click on it, it will copy your current brush size. So if you go to your brush and you now want to make it, I don't know, a different colour, a different shape, different thickness, then that's when you want to do it before you click, right click and stroke. Because otherwise, so if I now did this bit and then changed the thickness, I don't know, to 80, and now click on it, click stroke, it's going to do the whole thing again. So you want to keep it, you want to change it before you get to the stroke point. And again, remember that you need to delete that path once you're happy with your design. I think that is everything. I don't think there is actually anything else I need to go through with you. No, I don't think there is. So if you're happy, oh, actually, no, there is a few things. So drag in images. So if you open an image, you'll need to pull it down from the tab, and you would, I should have gone through this earlier, you would then click on your transform tool and you'll just drag it over. That's the same with PSDs and everything. It's the exact same. And now if you wanted to change it, you can press Ctrl and T to transform. Obviously you can adjust it to fit your image. As you can see, there's little pink lines. This is why I said the ruler comes in super handy at the top. So it'll tell you where if you place something on that edge, or if you want it something in the middle, like directly in the middle. Oh, where's my middle? Oh, it's there. So that's where that comes in handy as well. PSDs are exactly the same way. You drag and drop the group. So you'd open your group. You would grab the file and you drag that on, and then that will give you a PSD. I haven't got one on here because I just got rid of it. Yeah, so that is everything. There's nothing else I can go through with you. If you do find something and you don't know what it means or what it does, then just let me know and I can explain it a bit more depth. I can make another video for you to explain that or show you how it works. Any problems, then let me know. But I hope you enjoyed episode 1 so far, and hopefully I'll see you, or I should see you for the next one. So thanks for watching, and we will start very shortly.